Welcome to GD Gyan. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button.
Hello everyone, this could be my last episode of this AWS Solution Architect preparatory guide. So today we are going to cover the last one for the networking. It is called VPC, Virtual Public Cloud. So you all know about VPC, but what is that? So for example, that you have, it is a logical partition which will define across your instances that you're going to launch within the AWS cloud. So for example, that this is one region, maybe Mumbai region, and you have your own VPC. So within inside the data center, you are creating a logical partition so that my data center will not collide with my friend's data center. They cannot access each of our instances. So that is the logical partition that we call. Each of the availability zone will have one set of subnet, and how many IP address you will get. So I just wanted to show you something. The cider.xyz. So for example, you are going through this cider block 10.0.0.0 and 8 or maybe 8. So you are getting this many of IP address. If you go 28, you'll be getting less number of IP address. So you understand, right? So going 28 would be giving you less. However, what I wanted to show you, if you are going to choose this cider block /28, you are going to get 16 IP address, and out of that AWS will reserve this 5 IP address. So AWS by default will take 5 IP address so that you will be getting 11 IP address. So this cider.xyz website will help you to understand the entire how these things moves. So let's go to that. Let's go directly to our AWS website. So I have logged in here. I have done a small setup so that I can go ahead, and I deleted that. So let's go to the VPC straight away. We can create the VPC for us. So I have logged into this VPC AWS console, and I'm just going to create a new VPC. So I'll name it GD Gyan VPC. Okay. And I'm going to choose the cider block 16. I'm not going to choose any IPv6. I'll take default, not dedicated. I don't have that much money for dedicated host. So let's go back. So my VPC is created. So when my VPC is created, this one, right? So you can see that it's a default VPC, right? Yeah. So, and the one I created, GDGAN VPC, is not default VPC. So when the VPC is already created, what else I have created along with the VPC? Let's look into the subnet. No, they are not my VPC. It's different VPC, the default one, right? Let's look into the root table. Yes, this is the default VPC one, and this is the root table created for me, which is the main root table. It's written yes. And if I scroll down, scroll right, you can see GDGAN VPC. So I got one root table, but no subnet. Internet gateway. No, internet gateway is not for us. We remember that DE, this one is the default VPC. So it is attached to default one, not to mine. What else? Network ACL, NACL, right? We heard about lot NACL. So yeah, it is created for GDGAN VPC. We see that, and there is one more NACL for the default VPC. Okay. Security group. So yes, security group is also created, right? I do see this one. This one is our VPC, right? And D is the default VPC. So security group is also created. Let's go back to the PPT. So this is the region, the red boundary, and this is the VPC that I have created, the yellow boundary. And when I created the VPC, I have root table, I have NACL, I have security group along with the VPC. Go back to this thing. So that would be the default one. Whenever you create a VPC, you would have NACL, you have a root table and security group. No subnet, no internet gateway. Now let's go ahead and create one by one, right? We'll create our subnet. Create subnet. I wanted to name it as a private. I wanted to create two subnet. One is private subnet and another is the public subnet. In private subnet, I'll keep my database, which will not talk to the world. And in public subnet, I'll keep my application layer, which will talk to the world. So I'm choosing 1A, and the block that I'm going to choose 10.0.1.0/24 or maybe 28. Yeah. So this is my private subnet, right? I'm going to create one more subnet, public subnet, and I'll name it as a public so that I can understand. I'll choose my Gyan VPC availability zone 1B. Just one example. By default, 1A, 1B, they comes first, right? So everybody try to choose between 1A, 1B, and whichever at the bottom, selecting that by psychologically it is less. So you don't think that you are choosing 1A, that means logically that is in 1A. So your 1A and my 1A may not be. AWS will organize that so that all the availability zone would be uniformly available for everybody. So just a thought to share it to you. So 10.0.2.0 10.0 2.0/28. I'll create second subnet, which is my public subnet. Now I have created both the subnet. I have already the root tables. Now let's create the internet gateway. I just wanted to mention one more thing. So GDIGW, my name GD Gyan, so IGW. So just wanted to mention one more name. So if you have one VPC, your one VPC needs to be attached with the internet gateway so that it can talk to that. So I'm attaching my VPC, and I'm attaching it here. Now if you create one more internet gateway and try to attach your same VPC, it will not. So one internet gateway can attach to only one VPC, and the same VPC also you cannot attach to any other internet gateway. I can detach it from this VPC, I can attach it to another VPC, but the mapping is 1:1. So what else I have done? Subnet, root table, all those things are created now, right? Security groups. So security group, there is a default security group, right? Uh, let's modify this default security group uh, with so it is saying that all the traffic will come here, right? So I'll just modify it. Instead of all, I'll make it SSH. I'll make it this one, not this one. Add rule HTTP. Add rule ICMP for pinging. And I think that's it. I'll save this thing. So I created one security group here. I'll create one more security group, create security group. So this would be my uh, private SG, the whatever instance I'm going to launch for my private, I'll launch it here. So I'll choose this one. Add rule, I'll select SSH, this one. I'll add rule HTTP, this one. And security group are stateful, so whatever you select into inbound, by default it will allow the outbound also. So it's saying that allow description is required. Okay, private SG, right? So it is done. I'll create the security group. Let's go back to our PPT. So what I did, I had this root table NACL security group with my VPC. I just modified this security group and I created an internet gateway, right? So that it can connect to the world. And the next step, I'm going to create a private and public. Those two security group are being created, private and public. I'm going to launch some of the instances into the private and public. Let's go back. EC2 instances, launch instance, free tier. I'm just selecting. I'll just go a little fast here because these things we already have discussed. However, this is the important one. I'm going to launch instance into my VPC, right? My logical boundary. This is my public one, so I wanted to launch it here into public. So one more thing here, right? You see subnet setting is disabled. Let's go back to our subnet. One more thing I wanted to show you there. So yeah, so this is the subnet. So I have two subnet, one for private, one for public, right? But how if you look into here, so see we are supposed to get 16 IP, we got 15 11, so 5 has been reserved, that we already discussed. Now let's look into here. Both are default, both are, they don't have auto assign public IP. See this, they don't have auto assign public IP. So the one I'm going to make it public, right? It has to has the option enable so that it can make a public IP. So modify auto assign public IP. I'll ask for IPv4. Uh, so that's it. So now if I go back and see it here, it will show yes. And let's go back to EC2. Instances, same states, right? Let's go quickly. Launch instance, free tier. Anyway, I'm going to select free tier only. So that's it. T2.micro, selecting VPC, Gyan VPC, subnet. So you see, this is a private one, disable. The moment I select public one, it will show enable. So it is going to give us a public IP by default. I'll let it be the store. We're not going to discuss. Security group is something that is important. So we already have created two security groups. So this is the default security group. I'm keeping it here, HTTP SSH, right? And the private one I'll launch into the private. So that's it. Launch. I have already a key pair, so not. I'm using the same one. Launch instances. So let it be. Now let's go back to create one more, and here I'll do it little differently, but again you all know what I'm going to do it. I just going to do it with the bootstrap. So as usual, t2.micro, I'm going to select the VPC GD Gyan, and it would be onto private, subnet disable. So let's see advanced, right? So I have this bootstrap loader, so I'll just put it over here. This one, so I can call it GD Gyan and private VPC testing. Please ignore my typo. My laptop is not good. Maybe once my subscriber goes up, I'll get a new one. Okay, storage, just go to the tags, configure security group. So I'll select, we already have created, so I'll select the private security group, which is the same thing, but I have this one. Okay, launch, same GDG key pair, I'm going to keep it, and we are launching it. So my both instance are ready. Now let's quickly go to the VPC. Let's see if we need to make some change into the configuration. Let's go to the root table. So yeah, so this is our root table, right? This one, and I'm just going to create one more root table. I will name it as public root table, right? I'll associate it with the VPC GD Gyan, create it. and in that public root table, right, you can see it by default. This is the root table which is showing as a main, but I created one public root table. The reason is that anytime I create any subnet, by default it will get associated with this one. You can see that subnet association. So if I scroll down, the following subnet have not been explicitly associated with any other root table, therefore associated with the main root table. So anytime I create a new root table, new subnet, it will by default associated with the default one, the main one, and that is not connected to the internet yet. So I don't want my IGW internet gateway to be attached to this one, so that it should not create any issue. So I just want this root to be edit routes. So what I'm going to do, add routes. All the traffic from this root table should go to internet gateway, right? So this is the internet gateway I have. So I've saved this thing. So what does that mean? Go back to this PPT. So if you look into this one, this two VM I have created, right, public and private, and now I attach this root table with this internet gateway, right? And I have one public IP provider, so security group, which is already attached to the NACL. I have created two root table now. One root table is attached to the internet gateway, so that any traffic through this root table, through this NACL security group, can come here. This one cannot talk to because it is not attached to internet gateway. So that is what I wanted to make it happen. So I just attached to this one. Now let's see the subnet association, right? So this is the one thing I need to do, that edit association. So the public one I'll associate it with here. So it makes simple, right? I mean, I'm assigning the public one here and the private one would go there by default. So this one is the private one, so by default it will go to our main root table, right? So that is it. Let's go back to our EC2 instance. Both the instance are ready and ready to serve today's purpose. So I'll go to the private subnet, no public IP, so I cannot do anything. I have this public IP. Now copy this thing, copy it, right? Now connect it. I'll use this quick connector through the browser so that it would be easy for us to connect. I think it should be connected now. Yeah. So I'll just sudo my privileges. I'm now root user. So I'll just take this few update. I configure all the packages and everything is updated. So yum update, and then maybe I'll install Apache, right? Yeah. So all the packages now getting installed. Let's wait for some time. It should be done quickly. Okay, so let's go for the next one, Apache, and then maybe I'll start the Apache service. I'll start it and then check config. I'll move to this directory and I create a small index.html which I can show you that this server or this VM box is running. Okay, so I think it is done. So let's go back to the browser. So the public IP is already copied, it is there. Okay, Gyan public subnet testing. So I think this is working now. Now let's do one thing. Let's go to this private, copy it, and we'll try to pinging that same server from here, right? Because we said that this both private and public, I mean from public to private we can ping. So I'm just trying to ping it, but most likely it is not going to happen. The reason I'll tell you. So it is going to time out. So the reason is that the private subnet the security group, it doesn't allow ICMP ping. So I think so. Yes, I'm correct. So let us add a rule which is for ICMP P4 for all, and that's it. Save this rule. Come back. See, it started pinging now. So you saw that it was stopped and started pinging the moment I added. So it is also one of those things so it is talking. So my application layer is talking to my database layer. So now the model I wanted to show you here, it is working, right? So I created one virtual private cloud VPC private for me. We created NACL's truth table security group. Then I created one public subnet, private subnet, and I attached this to security group and to internet. So this guy I cannot access to outside. Even I'll try to show you that we have the private subnet, private IP address. I'll type that. It is not going to anywhere. It is just it will show connecting, and then fail. So now we have seen this slide till now that it is working now, right? Now I wanted to go into my private or my database instance, and I wanted to update some of the packages from internet. Okay, though I ensure that outside anyone cannot connect it because it doesn't even have a public IP. How can I do that? So let's go back to our instance. This is our public instance. Let's connect to that. EC2 connect, EC2-user. I'm going to connect into that, and I would be in few seconds. Yes, I'm there. Let's go back and connect, copy the private IP of the private instance, right? I'll sudo this one, sudo su super user, sorry, and I'm now as a root user now here, and I have a PM key which I downloaded. With that I'll go into SSH. So SSH EC2 hyphen user at the rate private IP minus I, then gdg.pem, the key that I got during the EC2 instance I created, right? So I'll be logging to that. So you see that I have logged in 10.0.1.7 from this private IP, or if I increases this one from this public IP to this one, right? So I have logged in there, and we have shown you earlier that I'm able to ping it from my public subnet to private instance, right? Now what I'll try to do that I'll again do sudo su, and I'll try to do yum update minus y. So I'll try to update some of the packages from internet. Let's see if it is getting updated. If it get connected to the internet, that means the entire concept I'm going to tell you it's wrong. But now you see it, right? It is not connecting. It is just showing the loaded plugin and nothing else. It is not moving hereafter. I'll control Z, and let's go back to this slide. So here this concept comes, NAT Instance and NAT Gateway. So we are into this place right now, right? So we need a device who will stay in public subnet, will stay and connected to the internet, and they will allow us, the private subnet, to talk to the internet. But again, internet cannot come back. So it is a one-way flow from private subnet to that NAT gateway or NAT instance, and then to internet. So here this thing comes, NAT instance, which will stay into public subnet behind a security group, and this VM, my private subnet, can talk through NAT instance to the internet, can get the packages. Same thing, the NAT gateway, it is also similar thing like NAT instance. Only thing, it is much more modern, fault tolerant, it is easy to create, it doesn't stay, or it doesn't need a security group, right? Yeah, that's it. Let's go back and see how we can create NAT instance, how we can create NAT gateway. So if I go back to VPC, let me go to quickly VPC, right? Okay, so here you can see you have option to create NAT gateway. Where are you? Okay, so this is the NAT gateway. This is fault tolerance one, and it is the easiest one that we can do. So I will take public subnet. So it needs to be into public subnet, right? And it need an elastic IP, so I'll allocate that. And that's it. NAT gateway creation is done. I'll show you how to create. So I need to now edit the root table. So root table of my private subnet, right? Private subnet root table needs to edit. So I'm saying that every internet connection, every connection, it will allow through NAT gateway. So earlier we have done it on my public root table that I allowed to internet gateway. Now I'm doing my private root table that all traffic is allowed to the NAT gateway and save the root. That's it. Now let's go back to this instance. Yum update y. It should be working. Looks like this PID is actually holding this process. So let's kill this one. Kill -9 3702. Now let's try to run this yum update -y. Okay, so now my yum update is running. So that shows it is connected to internet through NAT gateway. Let's quickly see how we can create NAT instance as well, right? So for that, go to EC2. It is similar like creating any instance. Go ahead and launch instance, and then go to your community AMI, type here NAT. You would be getting this AMI, select that. Yeah, go for the free tier. So now you are selecting this VPC, right? You are selecting this into public group. Now let's go to storage. We don't security group. So you see that you need to have this under a security group. So we'll select that and we'll have it in the default security group, where NAT gateway doesn't need a security group. So that's it. If I do create this one, it will create like a EC2 instance. It will show under EC2 instance. And similarly, I will have the root table for this instance and add NAT instance as a out. And that's it. It will work like same NAT gateway. So friends, we have discussed about the NAT gateway, NAT instance difference. Ignore the spelling mistake. I'll correct my PPT later on. So understand NAT gateway is much more fault tolerant, much more efficient and modern. So people are using that. NAT instance definitely is the old way of using it. And NAT gateway cannot be your jump box. So NAT instance you can create as a jump box, but NAT gateway cannot be. So I hope you understand everything about the VPC, and this is our last episode for this program Learn AWS in 4 hours. If you have not gone through my other episodes, please go through it and stay tuned. We will be meeting for next few session in case we get something, but definitely I'm going to prepare one more session on AWS interview questions that I'll be uploading soon. But before that, complete your AWS Solution Architect exam, read lots of FAQ, lots of blogs that you see, follow any of the YouTube video, any of the Udemy, any of the Cloud Academy video. That should be good enough, but do lots of hands-on. Until you do that, you won't be able to clear the exam because it has lot of scenario based questions. So all the best for your exam. Stay tuned. If you have any question, come back, let me know. Thank you.
Please like, subscribe, share. Thanks for watching.